One careless confession can change how a woman sees you forever. Let that sink in. Because the truth is, what you say in a single vulnerable moment can reshape her entire image of you. And here's the part no one tells you. Once that image is altered, it almost never goes back. You could spend months building attraction, respect, and desire, and in 5 seconds of oversharing, you can undo it all. This isn't about lying. Let's get that straight right now. This is about protecting your frame, your respect, and your power. Too many men think honesty means spilling everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They believe that the more they confess, the closer they'll become. But that's not how attraction works. Attraction isn't logical. It's emotional. It's built on mystery, respect, and strength. The moment you hand her your darkest confessions, you think you're building intimacy, but what you're really doing is planting doubt. And doubt is poison. Women rarely forget what you tell them. In fact, they remember it even more vividly than you do, because female psychology is wired to pick up patterns, details, and subtle shifts in how you carry yourself. If you confess weakness, fear, or insecurity, she'll lock it away, and later, in moments of tension, stress, or conflict, that confession will rise back up in her mind like a flashing warning sign. That's why this message is urgent. Too many men give away their power with their own words. They think they're bonding, they think they're proving trust, but in reality, they're chipping away at the very foundation of attraction. By the time you realize it, it's too late. She doesn't see the confident man she once admired. She sees the cracks you revealed, and those cracks become the story she tells herself about you. By the end of this, I'm going to give you the 8 things you must never confess to a woman. Not because you're hiding who you are, but because you're protecting how she sees you. You don't need to hand her the tools to dismantle your value. You need to guard your power, your mystery, and your presence. If you're ready for that truth, keep watching. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women will comfort you in the moment, but later they will reframe everything you confess. That's the psychology of disclosure. What feels like relief to you feels like revelation to her. And once it's revealed, she can't unsee it. Think about it. You're stressed, emotional, maybe even desperate, and you unload something heavy like, "I'm scared I'm not good enough," or "I don't think I can handle this." She hugs you. She says it's okay. She might even tell you she loves your honesty. But weeks later, when life throws you both into a challenge, that confession comes back. She doesn't remember the hug. She remembers the weakness. And in that moment, she doesn't see the rock she can lean on. She sees the crack you showed her. That's how attraction dies. Not in one big blowout, but in the slow erosion of respect caused by the words you let slip. Here's the rule. What you confess becomes her lens. If you tell her you're insecure, she'll start looking at you through that insecurity. If you confess your fears, she'll begin to see you as a man ruled by fear. If you admit your doubts, she'll start doubting you too. This isn't about paranoia. It's about awareness. You have to understand that your words shape her perception of you far more than you realize. And here's the kicker. Once her perception shifts, her attraction follows. Women are emotional historians. They archive your confessions and replay them at the worst times. So while you think you're creating closeness, what you're really doing is handing her ammunition that can never be taken back. Men, listen carefully. Confession feels good in the moment because it takes the weight off your shoulders. But attraction isn't about your relief. It's about her respect. When you confess the wrong things, you get temporary comfort but long-term damage. That's why smart men learn to master themselves in silence. You don't dump your deepest struggles on her. You carry them, you conquer them, and you only ever show the strength that inspires her. The truth is, women don't forget confessions. They frame them, they filter you through them, and they never see you the same again. That's why you must know exactly what not to confess. And starting now, I'll break them down, one by one. Every man has insecurities. That's human. But here's the mistake too many men make. They believe that unloading those insecurities on a woman will bring them closer. They think vulnerability equals intimacy. It doesn't. In fact, nothing kills respect faster than oversharing the thoughts that make you question your own value. Picture this. You're with a woman you care about, and in a quiet moment you say, "Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough." You might expect her to lean in, reassure you, and tell you she loves you no matter what. And maybe she does right then. But here's what really happens in her psychology. You just planted a seed of doubt. A seed that will sprout at the worst possible time. When life gets hard, when challenges appear, when she's looking for a rock to lean on, that confession echoes in her mind. Instead of seeing strength, she remembers weakness. Instead of trusting your leadership, she questions it. Women don't forget insecurities. They magnify them. And over time, those insecurities shape how she sees you. This isn't about hiding who you are. It's about mastering yourself before you speak. Look back at history. Great men like Marcus Aurelius, Winston Churchill, or even modern leaders all had insecurities. Every one of them. But they didn't broadcast them. They processed them in private, through journals, through discipline, through trusted mentors. They didn't hand their doubts to the people who looked to them for strength. You need to do the same. Write it down. Face it in the gym. Conquer it in silence. But don't confess it to the woman whose respect you need most. Attraction isn't built on pity. It's built on presence. When you make her carry your insecurities, you stop being her man and start being her project. And women don't fall in love with projects. They fall in love with men who know their worth, even when they're still fighting their inner battles. So remember this. Your insecurities don't define you, but confessing them too freely can. Guard them. Master them. Because once she sees you as the man who doubts himself, she'll never see you the same again. Nothing screams weakness louder than looking a woman in the eyes and saying, "I'm scared you'll leave me." Men think it's romantic. They think it shows how much they care. But in reality, it tells her one thing. You've placed her above you. You've just confessed dependency, and dependency kills attraction faster than anything else. Think about the message behind those words. You're admitting that your happiness, your peace, your sense of worth are all tied to whether she stays or goes. That's not love. That's neediness. And women don't respect neediness. They test it, they push against it, and when they find it, they pull back. Here's the truth. The moment you confess fear of losing her, the dynamic shifts. She's no longer chasing your respect. You're chasing her approval. She no longer sees you as the prize. She sees herself as the one holding all the power. And when that balance tips, attraction dies. Imagine a king telling his queen, "I can't live without you." Do you think she'd admire him? Or do you think she'd start to question if he's really the man she thought he was? A true king knows his value with or without her. And that's exactly how you must live. Because here's the harsh reality. Women aren't drawn to men they can control. They're drawn to men they can admire. And admiration comes from confidence, independence, and self-respect, not desperate confessions. Now, don't get this twisted. It's okay to love a woman deeply. It's okay to show affection, commitment, and loyalty. But it is never okay to beg for her presence or admit that you're terrified of losing it. That doesn't make her feel loved. It makes her feel like she's trapped with a man who can't stand on his own. and no woman wants that weight. So what do you do with that fear? You flip it. You remind yourself that you are the prize. You live in a way where she knows losing you would be the real mistake, because when you project strength instead of fear, you create attraction that lasts. Men, burn this into your mind. Love without confidence looks like weakness, and weakness is forgettable. But confidence, even in silence, is unforgettable. Never confess fear of losing her. Show her why losing you would be the biggest loss of her life. Money is one of the fastest ways a man destroys his own frame with a woman. Tell her too much, and you lose control. Confess your financial struggles, and she starts to wonder if you can provide stability. Brag about your wealth, and she starts to measure you by numbers instead of who you are. Either way, you've just reshaped how she values you and not in your favor. Here's the hard truth. Women don't need to know the details of your bank account. They don't need the exact numbers, the struggles, or the victories. What they want to feel is direction. Are you a man with ambition, control, and discipline? That's what matters. The moment you sit down and say, "I'm drowning in debt," you might think you're being honest, but what she hears is, "This man is unstable." If you say, "I make 6 figures a year," you think you're impressing her, but now you've put yourself in a box where her expectations will never stop climbing. Either way, you lose. Look at history. Do you think kings told their queens the exact count of the gold in their treasury? Of course not. They showed power. They showed vision. They showed command. That was enough. The mystery is what kept them untouchable. The same applies to you. When you reveal too much about money, good or bad, you hand over leverage. You give her a measuring stick to use against you, and trust me, she will use it. What you should do instead is simple. Embody ambition. Show that you're in control of your finances, that you make disciplined moves, and that you're building something bigger. That's what inspires her respect. It's not about the number in your account. It's about the direction of your life. So the next time she asks, "How much do you make?" don't turn it into a confession. Redirect with strength. Say, "Enough to take care of what matters, and focused on building more." That answer shows ambition, it shows control, and it leaves the mystery intact. Remember, money is a tool, not your identity. Protect it, guard it, and never confess details that change how she sees you. Keep the mystery, and you keep the power. Every man fights battles, addictions, bad habits, failures, flaws. That's part of life. But here's the line you can never cross. Don't hand those weaknesses to a woman in the form of confession. Because once you speak them, they define you in her mind. Tell her, "I can't control myself when I drink," and suddenly every night out becomes a test in her head. Tell her, "I always fail at staying consistent," and now she sees you as the man who can't finish what he starts. Weaknesses that you thought were personal become the lens she uses to judge every part of you. And once respect cracks, attraction fades. Women don't fall in love with men who confess they're broken. They fall in love with men who conquer themselves. That's why the rule is this: don't confess weakness until it's a scar, not a wound. A scar shows you've been tested and you overcame. A wound just bleeds all over her, and nobody is attracted to bleeding. Think about great leaders. They all had flaws, temptations, struggles. But they didn't broadcast them. They worked in silence to master themselves. Winston Churchill fought his black dog of depression, but he didn't stand in front of his people confessing despair. He stood strong, projecting courage, and that's what inspired millions. You have to take the same path. Confront your weaknesses privately, with discipline and relentless work. Journal them, fight them in the gym, master them with action. But don't sit across from a woman you want to admire you and unload your failures into her lap. That doesn't make her feel closer. It makes her feel less secure. Attraction is not about perfection. It's about direction. She doesn't need to see your chains while you're still trying to break them. She needs to see the strength of the man who refuses to stop fighting. So remember this: weaknesses are part of life, but confessions of weakness are part of death. The death of respect, the death of attraction. When you've turned a weakness into a scar, you can share it as a story of victory. Until then, keep it to yourself. Master yourself first, then speak. Because a man who conquers his weakness is irresistible. A man who confesses it too soon is forgettable. Men love to believe that honesty about past pain will earn sympathy. They think saying, "My ex cheated on me," or "women have used me before," will make a woman see them as loyal, wounded, and deserving of love. But here's the truth: it does the opposite. The moment those words leave your mouth, her mind starts working against you. If other women didn't value him, why should I? That's the silent question that sits in the back of her mind, and once it's there, it never goes away. You may think you're opening up, but in reality, you're branding yourself as the man who was chosen last. And attraction doesn't thrive on pity. It thrives on admiration. Women aren't drawn to victims. They're drawn to warriors. When you confess betrayal, you relive it. You carry the wound forward, and now she sees you not as a man who overcame, but as a man still bleeding from his past. Think about Alexander the Great. He was betrayed more than once, by generals, by allies, even by his own men. But he didn't stand in front of his army telling sob stories about betrayal. He stood taller, he learned, and he pressed forward with power. That's what made him unstoppable. You need to do the same. Betrayal should make you stronger, not more talkative. The scar should remind you of the lesson, not become a story you retell to every new woman who walks into your life. Because when you confess those heartbreaks, you don't inspire her. You make her doubt. You make her wonder if you're still carrying ghosts into her bed, into her heart, into her future. So the rule is simple. Never confess betrayal as a wound. Carry it as a scar. And if you ever share it as proof of what you've overcome, not what still haunts you. A man admired by women isn't the man who cries about being cheated on. It's the man who stands strong because he knows no betrayal can break him. Don't confess your past heartbreaks. Show her the lessons you've learned, and let your strength prove you've moved beyond them. This is one of the oldest traps in the book, and most men walk right into it. She leans in, smiles, and asks, "So, how many women have you been with?" You think it's an innocent question. You think honesty will score you points. Wrong. The truth is, no matter what number you say, you lose. If it's high, she sees you as a player, a man who can't settle, a man who may never be loyal. Even if she laughs in the moment, the seed of doubt is planted. If it's low, she may see you as inexperienced, untested, maybe even undesirable in the eyes of other women. Either way, her attraction shifts. This is why the smart man never plays the numbers game. Because attraction doesn't live in statistics. It lives in presence, mystery, and frame. Look at history. Do you think Julius Caesar bragged to Cleopatra about every woman he had? Of course not. Powerful men let their presence, not their past, define them. And you should too. When she asks the question, understand what's really happening. She's testing you. She wants to see if you'll fold, if you'll try to impress, or if you'll lose composure under her curiosity. The right move isn't to answer. The right move is to redirect with charm and mystery. Say something like, "Enough to know what I want, and wise enough to know what I won't settle for." That answer gives her nothing she can use against you, but it keeps her intrigued. That's the power of frame. Because here's the reality. Women don't actually want the number. They want the feeling. They want to know if you're experienced, if you're desirable, if other women have chosen you. And you can show all of that without ever handing her ammunition. So remember this. The number doesn't matter. What matters is the way you carry yourself. Don't confess the digits. Keep it playful, keep it mysterious, and let your actions speak louder than any number ever could. Every man feels fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of losing status, money, or even the people closest to him. That's natural. But here's the rule you can never break. Never confess those fears to a woman you want to admire you. Because once spoken, those fears don't just belong to you anymore. They become part of how she sees you. You might think telling her, "I'm terrified of failing," or "I'm scared I'll never be good enough," will make her feel closer to you. What it really does is burn those words into her mind. Later, when life tests you, she won't remember your courage. She'll remember your confession. And in that moment, her faith in you cracks. The same goes for self-doubt. Saying, "I don't know if I'm cut out for this," or "Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough," is like handing her proof that you don't fully believe in yourself. And here's the harsh truth. If you don't believe in yourself, why should she? History shows us the pattern. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire through war and plague, but he never broadcast his fears. He wrote them in his private meditations, where he could face them, conquer them, and emerge stronger. Spartan warriors felt fear too, but they didn't stand in formation confessing it. They carried it in silence, turning it into discipline, letting their courage, not their doubt, define them. That's the model you need to follow. A man's fear is his responsibility to master. A man's doubt is his battle to fight. You don't hand that burden to her, because the moment you do, she stops seeing you as her rock. She starts seeing you as another weight she has to carry. And no woman wants to carry her man. She wants to lean on him. Women crave certainty, even if you're still figuring it out behind the scenes. They want to feel your direction, your belief, your presence. So keep your fears private until you've turned them into fuel. Keep your doubts in your journal, not in her ears. Master them silently and project only the strength she needs to trust. Because once you confess fear and doubt, she may never see you the same again. Now you see the truth. Attraction isn't destroyed by looks, money, or even love. It's destroyed by careless confessions. Words you thought were innocent, honest, even romantic can linger in a woman's mind and reframe you forever. And that's why this isn't about lying. It's about discipline. It's about knowing that what you say becomes who you are in her eyes. Women don't forget confessions. They archive them, they replay them, and they use them as the lens through which they decide if you're a man to respect or a man to dismiss. That's why silence, mystery, and self-mastery are magnetic. A man who knows how to guard his confessions doesn't come across as secretive. He comes across as strong. A man who disciplines himself not to overshare doesn't look cold. He looks unshakable. And that's exactly what women are drawn to. So let's recap. Never confess your insecurities. Never confess your fear of losing her. Never give away the details of your finances, your weaknesses, or your betrayals. Never play the numbers game with your past. And above all, never hand over your fear or self-doubt. Because once you do, you give away the very thing that makes you attractive. Your frame, your presence, your certainty. The men who win in relationships aren't the ones who confess everything. They're the ones who know how to master themselves in silence and let their strength speak louder than their words. So here's your call to action. Respect yourself enough to guard your power. Don't hand it over for a moment of relief. Don't confuse confession with connection. The truth is simple. What you keep disciplined makes you strong. What you confess carelessly makes you weak. Attraction is fragile, and women never forget what you confess. So protect your power, hold your frame, and live like the man she'll never doubt, never forget, and never want to lose. This video was great, but this video on the right-hand side is even more helpful.